I'm an earthworm woman. In the mornings, I fill my tanks by breathing the energy of the sea and tasting the power of the sun penetrating my skin. There's an air of no care, which comes with age, and I hold my head up proudly, liking who I've become. I'm not afraid of smells, or dirt, or to walk barefoot across the stones. Sometimes I wade through the shallow water just to embrace its fluid element, my hair often crazy and loose, being pulled by and flying in the wind. I can be glamorous if I want to, although makeup was never my thing. And I've learnt that life is for living, not fearing, and so I absorb it like a sponge. Grand Rising, everyone, and welcome. And I just would like to start, first of all, with an update on what's known as MGG, Michael Griffith. He seems to have made you've probably seen all the posts as well, but made a big turn, and everything's working. Not going to have to go through any sort of backtracking, which is really such relief. Yeah, the antibiotics, whatever he's on, very strong ones, are working, and the infection's leaving. So that's fantastic. Thank you to everybody. I have to say, in the Cafe Locked Out community, there's just been incredible outpouring of love and support and prayers and good energy. And Cafe Locked Out is now, and has been for quite a while, a community, not only people who are doing the streaming, not only people who are putting the shows up, but all the people who are commenting, supporting, involved, but just believing in what it is. It's just this incredibly united community, and we have been for 5 years. Can we believe that? Or whatever, how long it's been. Cafe Locked Out, it's been going 4 years probably. 2021, 2022. And just thank you. And let's just keep positive, keep in our own lanes, keep in our forward motions. That's what we can do, and just and stay close through here. Through here. Anyway, today is Earthworm Woman Monday, and I have got a lovely woman called Sandy who's coming on, and I've got rid of myself, and here she is. I first spoke to you probably about 2 years ago, so welcome, Sandy. And I think it was around Marooned and this and that and everything, and then when I started Earthworm Woman, I'm going to ask you to talk about you in a sec. When I started Earthworm Woman, I remember you were talking about going off doing, I can't remember what you call it now, something. And yeah, what was it?
Woofing.
Woofing, that's right. I was going to say whooping. I'm like, woofing. And I thought, well, we've got to get her on. Anyway, so here is Sandy. Sandy is a genuine earthworm person, because she seems to live to the beat of her own drum. I read a couple of notes to myself this morning about her. I thought she has incredible strength. I just picked this up from you when I talked to you, and resilience. You're like a real, no matter what is going on, no matter where we are, you just seem to have huge amounts of resilience and strength in your own self. So tell me, what's your background? Who have you been? Who are you? Where did you come from?
All right. Okay. So, who am I?
Because you've got lots and lots of things to I can see, and I'll have to go and
Yeah.
find them all. Lots of
Right now, I'd probably describe myself as a grandmother with training wheels on.
wow.
And I'm still working out my life path and how it's rolling out. Um, in the past, I'm originally from Sydney. I've spent time overseas in England and Barbados, and then up in Darwin for a couple of years before I moved to the Sunshine Coast in
Mm,
2006. Um, and around that time, I had my son, who's now 17 years old, in his last year of school.
mm,
And I guess I've worked in many different industries. Most of them have been, most of the companies I've worked in were either multinational companies or, maybe a leader in Australia in marketing and advertising and media to start with. Then I had a stint up here being a state manager for a dental laboratory. Um, and then from
what
there,
were
I
you
moved in.
doing with that? Was it,
I would go and visit dentists on behalf
okay.
of the laboratory in Sydney and sell them, our products and the dental technicians and things like that.
Mm,
Um, and that was interesting. That sort of threw me into the medical industry and gave me a whole lot of insights that I would never have known about.
mm,
Um, but the key thing was to make sales. And yeah, then I fell pregnant, and throughout that I started to be a consultant to dental laboratories and helping them with their business because it was quite a cottage industry. And through that, sort of moved into the area of workplace health and safety consulting. And then I've done a fair bit of just project work for different businesses up here on the Sunshine Coast. Worked for some not-for-profits and been board secretary and things like that. Um, and then life changes, different things change. I thought everything was going well, and I'd moved to Sunshine Beach, and then my boy's father took me to court to try to gain full custody. So that
wow.
completely
Yeah.
took me on a different direction from
Yeah.
then. And yeah, I think that's probably been the biggest thing to learn how to build resilience and strength. And
My goodness.
that's where I'm still on a mission right now. Probably
Yeah,
it's
because
still
he's
related
only
to
17. Um, so I know you're on a mission. You're on many missions. You're,
that.
so when the whole last 3, 4, whatever, how many years where people suddenly couldn't do what they were doing, a lot of them, and had to just stop and stand in there, with their morals. Did that affect, were you already out of that system of selling or, the corporate thing or?
Yeah, yeah. So I had been out of that sales job for quite a while.
Mm,
And when COVID came around, it wasn't a shock to me. And
mm,
that's where I relate it back to the court case where I was, there were three key reasons to take me to court, and one of them was to have my 4-year-old vaccinated. So, I've done a lot of research all around that
yeah.
at the time. So when COVID hit, um, I was, and even since probably 2016, when there was
Mm,
a lot more exposure through the vax movement in America, and with Michael O'Neill and the Informed Medical Options Party.
yeah, the
Um,
heart party now. Yep. Yeah.
yeah, now the Heart Party, I actually really felt like I'm not isolated anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew other people, and it was an ex-partner in 2010 that actually alerted me to, potential side effects of the vaccines. But up until then, I was also clueless up until 2010 through to the court case. But around 2016, was where I really didn't feel so isolated, and
Yep.
I started to learn a lot more from listening to other people's experiences and being involved with
He was
all of
4, so that's quite a while. And so of course, when this all turned up, you were. very much involved with finding out what was in vaccines and things. But the word is called trust. It wasn't that you were what did you just say? Something about yourself? Clueless or something like that. But it's not that. It's trust, isn't it? People trusted, and they trusted that this was actually really truthfully a good thing, and really was eradicating all these illnesses and everything.
Yeah, and
That,
it's going through that experience that well, we just didn't know because it's not talked about. It's just something that you do as a parent,
that's right. Yeah.
unless you've been exposed otherwise.
Yeah,
And
I'm one of our
you live for a welfare.
I'm lucky because my parents didn't vaccinate me, so that
Yeah,
sort of carried on. It was very much a part of me, and I questioned and I read everything, but that's just because, like you just said, I was lucky. If I had come from another background, that would have been different.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
think at
so
our age, anyway, I've still got my medical records. I only have ever had 2 vaccines as a child.
yeah, there we go. Wow. So now you are your base is the Sunshine Coast because your son's only 17 still. So does he? And then you've been heading off. I think that one of the last times I spoke to you, you were going to be heading off to many places
Yeah.
around Australia. Have you gone and come back? Because I know it's
Yes.
been time is
Yeah.
racing. Oh, you're
I,
serious.
yeah. So the idea was because of my passion and interest in the traditional complementary integrated medicine, I guess, international trend.
Yeah.
Um, it gave me an opportunity. The last place that I'd lived in for 3 years had a range of various issues, and mainly to do with black mold and on-site plumbing issues.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, the rental market's quite difficult, and I was trying to work out what to do. So, with my son at the age that he's at, I thought it also was a good opportunity for him to go and spend some time living with his father. He'd been living with me for full time for the last 4 years, and that gave me the opportunity to sort of work out a few other different solutions or directions in life. And one of them was engaging in the willing workers on organic farms. So then I could start to learn about what happens on the farms, and the source of the natural and traditional products, the permaculture, and all the sustainable, measures that can be undertaken out on the farm. So I've been really lucky, and I had a great place in Kilkeven, for example, that I went to with a guy called Shane Joyce, and he's sort of like a master in the field of syntropics and a whole range of different things.
Yeah. Where's that? Whereabouts is he?
That's in Kilkeven, which is
Um,
just west of Gympie.
oh,
And, he's for the past 12 years or so, he's been revegetating 300 acres.
mm,
Um, so it was great to be able to be thrown into um, an opportunity like that with such an experienced
yeah.
farmer.
How many farms did you end up going to then? I mean,
I've only been to a couple, and
yeah.
then I was brought back to the Sunshine Coast. So I'm here for a little while. Working university started, so I've been a
Oh, you're
university
studying
student.
as well. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm in the thick of it with university. So I'm just staying
What are
put
you
for a little bit.
studying? What are you studying?
In 2020, I enrolled in studying international business, public relations, and social media. So it's a business and communications undergraduate degree. And that also, I guess, placed me in a different situation up here with COVID. Everything went online. I
Mm.
wasn't, I didn't have to go anywhere, so I didn't have to partake in any of the
Okay, so
scenarios.
you've been doing it for a while. Hi, Marie.
Yeah,
You had been doing it for a while. You must be
yeah.
almost finished, are you?
No, I've taken 2 leaves of absence.
Mm.
So I think I'm not a mature age student. I'm one of the most elderly there, and probably doing the course the longest. But that's okay.
So that's
This
just
is
sounds like it's just another branch to your incredible knowledge that you've got already. I mean,
yeah,
this is really good, but I remember having phone calls with you, and you just have a brain that goes here, there. You've got so much going in your knowledge pool. Um, so you're going to stick it all together, obviously,
yeah.
put it all
It's
together,
kind of
and then
hectic, isn't it? But yeah, I'm trying to stick it all together and
yeah.
work out a way forward
Mm,
um, that I think is it's what my father and I used to call the path of least resistance, and
mm,
it would provide better outcomes. So whilst I've been involved with helping a few different clients
mm.
during COVID, and that was a big learning lesson as to I guess what the authorities were doing during COVID.
Yeah.
Um, but all of these different scenarios that you're in bring you more wisdom, greater
Mm.
learning, and understanding of so many of the dynamics, in society, and that really affect a lot of people. And
Yep.
the sad side of it is the ones that actually cause oppression and
Mm.
division, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, my focus is, to um, to know those and understand them.
Mm.
I think my father always said to me, it's wise to know the laws of the land. And at times there'll be gaps in those that you may need to embrace, um, for your own well-being and safety.
Well, if
Um,
you've done things like health and safety, you've got that sort of brain anyway that says, this is right, this is wrong, and now you're just adding to that a base
yeah,
of that's yeah, the path to least resistance, being informed. That's what
yeah,
you're talking about, really.
yeah, and growing the knowledge. And I think,
Mm.
when they came out with the PCR test initially, and I think it was March 2020,
Yeah,
the first thing I do is go and pick up the manual and actually
yeah,
read the manual for a piece of equipment that's been
yeah,
used. And
yeah.
that will give you insight, and from that, that led me down to, looking into if other different areas that I would have never have thought to consider.
Mm.
It was interesting because then when they were promoting, how many COVID cases in different parts of the world and all this sort of stuff, you could actually, I don't know, see how the machine was, helping build up that crazy data.
Well, see how the machine.
Yeah. So
What's
the
what?
the PCR machine tested for 4 different groups,
Yes,
and they were
right.
called Group A, Group B, Group P,
Mm.
and other.
Mm.
So it was interesting, at the time when they brought out B1 point B B1.3.37 or something. This was after the alpha
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
scenario, and then there
Yep.
was there was a little bit of this B floating around,
Mm.
and really when I looked at the data for the gene bank, that B1.1.37 was somewhere in South Africa near the Rockefeller University,
Huh. Right.
right? And it really wasn't anything to talk about. So I don't know. I've found it interesting, and then it all gets too much because they bring in all these other alphabet letters and all sorts of different things
Mm.
to confuse
Wow.
everybody.
So you just really went in. That's amazing. I mean, not many people would have that kind of brain to actually look into that detail.
You want to know my
Um,
theory?
what's that?
You want to know my theory?
Go. I may not understand it, but yeah.
Okay. I'll say it out there in public. I normally say it to a
Mm.
lot of people, but
Mm.
so for me, for a machine to be able to test something that is very novel,
Mm.
there has to be a test measure that previously existed. So, and this is like a very superficial suggestion, basically. But for me, Group A was based on the flu vaccine, and Group B. And in that flu vaccine, when you get tested, if you've got the flu, they'll either say you've got influenza B or influenza A. And we know that the flu vaccines are created on a yearly basis, and they'll include different strains. So it might be from Hong Kong, it might be from Canada, it might be wherever. And then there's also the variation around the world of the trivalent version, which is a live attenuated version, or the quadrivalent version, right? So in Australia, for that season of the flu, the quadrivalent version was distributed. And then also, and when I say that year, I'm talking 2019. And the places that went down big time were the places that distributed the trivalent. So that was places like Spain, Italy, New York. So for me, it was just another really adverse reaction from bad combinations of flu vaccines around the world. And apparently the adverse potential adverse reactions from the trivalent flu vaccine can be greater than the quadrivalent, for example, which is the dead cell.
one, not a live vaccine.
Yeah. So that's what I think that they tested on. So you had Group A, Group B, and then you had, and would have those vaccines or whatever developed titers or whatever it is, and for the tests to come through. P was just that general area of pneumonia, and other, I think, was a combination of everything. And it's interesting, last year I was working with some people and one guy was really, really excited. He was like, do you know what? Nowadays you can actually go and get a test, and it tests for both the flu and COVID. How awesome is that?
Yeah. I've heard of that.
So it's just kind of interesting. You hear all this different information and you read up on different things and you try to make sense of it. And I think that's the sadness about society. Everybody's finding it hard to trust again. They're finding it hard to know what's authentic. They're finding it hard to get transparency from other people.
Absolutely. I mean, then again, you do wonder how many people care or can be bothered to look, can be bothered to find out. I mean, we're a big community. I feel like we are. I mean, when I say that here, anybody is part of this, obviously, who's watching this, but people who've gone a certain way are a big community. I get surprised by how many people, how many people just keep popping up through the Cafe Lockdown, through even here. There's new people I've never heard of. And on my Facebook page, and I go, oh, look, I got 80 mutual friends. There must be someone. So we are. There's a lot of people, but I really hope that is growing. That more and more people are just going, hang on a second, this doesn't seem right. Why are we suddenly always getting all these things shoved in our face? I don't know, but I do hope people there. I hope more people are questioning, but I do see a lot of disinterest. Like I was talking to you before we came on about, I just see these people I know.
All right. Brownies
with their earphones and their headphones, and hi there. This is a dog-friendly podcast. With their ear pods and their headphones, and they really just don't want to look. They're just keeping, Anyway, I don't know if that was connected to. Pretty much only ever had flu, and I've had a flu. Yeah, exactly. There we go. I mean, they're pushing this flu vaccine now everywhere I see. And nobody's going, huh? Isn't that strange how we didn't have flu for 3 or 4 years? They don't. So going back to
that we, the era that we grew up in. Okay, sorry, baby dog. baby dog issues. So the era that we grew up in, the way I describe it is, and I'm generalizing, but our mothers grew up as women weekly mothers, and the Women's Weekly actually, it sort of informed our mothers
Mm.
on how to be a good mother, and
Yeah,
what
yeah. Okay.
things that you need to do. And I remember as kids in our family, the second there might have been a sickness, it was off to the doctor. The second there might have been a tooth issue, it was off to the dentist.
Right, right.
It was quite full on,
Mm.
and you know the doctors and the dentists and there wasn't a huge allied health field also at that point, but they were highly respected intellectuals, that would be able to solve any of those problems.
Were you in a
So you really
city
didn't
then?
question.
Where did you grow up?
No, I grew up in Castle Hill in Sydney, which was
Okay,
sort
then
of
you said you
northwest.
went everywhere, probably as an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so it's and I still think that happens today. And I'm not meaning at all to denigrate doctors or dentists or anybody.
No.
The intelligence they need to get through university and the the care and the empathy that they need to be able to do their job, and dealing with so many different people. It
Mm.
really isn't a one size fit all scenario.
Yeah.
Um, but I just think as a society, we didn't question, because we were always just advised this is what you need to do, and you just do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my parents were different in that way, but I think that's definitely seems to be. It's just a different thing now with social media or this and that, and but the thing, obviously, we know there's way more fear. There's way more all of the vaccine stuff. So many 72 for kids now, babies. So how you said that you were a new grandma, nana? What do you want to
No,
call
I've got
yourself?
my I think I'm at that age where I've got my grandma training wheels on.
Oh, okay. You're not talking about the dog, though, are you? You're not a grandma to the dog. Yeah.
Hi.
You said it
But
was a
actually,
baby
it
dog.
was my grandson. Brownie is my grandson. We used to muck around because there was me and my son. So we,
Yeah.
we had Blackie, who died 6 weeks ago, and
Oh, oh,
we had her son Brownie, right? So
right.
Blackie was Lennox's daughter, which made Brownie my grandson.
Mm.
Just
But have you
fun.
got older kids as well, or is it just your child? You're
Uh,
70. Oh, okay, okay. So I
Just
see what
one.
you're saying.
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, have you always been this sort of? You said you talked about your dad a lot. Have you always been very inquisitive, interested, someone who wants to get in, take knowledge in?
Yeah, probably, because I've gone
Mm.
from so many different jobs that the
And even as a
skill set
child,
and
yeah.
knowledge were learnt in the next job, because they were really quite different. And I would say that my father was an engineer, so there's probably some learned ways of thinking or doing things from his influence.
Mm.
Um, and he was also a minister of a church in Sydney, and was always departing knowledge and trying to make a really nice, happy, safe place for everybody to come, and
Okay.
make sure
Yeah.
everybody would be safe at the end of life. So he was always a talker and a thinker and a helper.
Well,
Um,
that's interesting. See, that's one kind of making people safe, and now the equivalent of making people safe is medical, quick, quick, safe, 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 signs everywhere. Do this, don't do that. Be careful of this. Don't fall off the edge. John, you don't have to get anything. He's saying he needs to get a flu vaccine every year to work in aged care.
so
That's
John, this is one of my missions.
mm,
Do you want to quickly talk about it or not?
me,
No, John. It's
John.
one of
He
my
can't
missions.
talk. He's,
No,
he's
no, I meant you, Rohana. Do you want to quickly talk about or come back to what John said? Because that's one of my
oh,
missions.
Oh, just the workers. I mean, I'm going to the aged care, my dad's aged care at the moment, because he really is. He's heading off, and he's going to be in palliative if he doesn't head off before that. In the next week or so, and I look at the people, the staff working there. I think, you poor guys. I don't know what they're pushing for you, but they're really actually quite nice there. I don't think they do push a lot, but to have to get a vaccine to work in the aged care is insane. You talk about it, Sandy. I just got to try and get these comments going.
Yeah, so one of the plans is hopefully to be able to really put pressure on workplaces to prevent that from happening, and to go back to choice. So an example, when I in 2022, when I helped keep a school here, it was a remote school in Queensland, and they had been threatened by Department of Health and Department of Education that they would be shut down if they didn't provide the vaccination records of the 7 teachers that worked there. And so I was introduced to them, and I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And the end result was keeping the school open for that term, and defending the privacy of the teachers, making sure that the school was safe, obviously. But there was a strategy that I would put together all of the correspondence on behalf of the principal that would go back to Department of Health and Department of Education, and she would put together the correspondence to the parents. She knew the parents, the type of people they were and things like that, more than I did in the community. But we'd always make sure that both bits of communication were saying the same things as well. So through that activity, I put together a consultation survey, or two. One was for the teachers and one was for the parents. And it's a workplace health and safety code of practice that the consultations should happen. And the way that they, rushed out this whole COVID scenario, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and it was just chaos and chaotic, and nobody knew what they were doing, and authorities were just like, well, you've just got to do what we think we're going to do. It's all novel. It's all, it's all guesswork, based on modelling, whatever they wanted to, say was okay to push it through. But still, the premise of workplace health and safety is to undertake consultation. So with that survey, it allowed me to put together an informed consent process. And there were 23 references that were just very easy for the teachers and the parents to go through to understand that informed decision process. And it had things in there like, this is the safety data sheet for the flu vaccine. Let's look at the insert for the rapid antigen test, a whole range of different things. But in that survey, the references were, and I have to say, the survey was skewed for somebody that didn't want the vaccination. There was authority documentation to be able to support that in any case, and I wasn't going to do something that the media was already doing, and authorities were. But reference to the risk assessment plan from the federal government, or access to Queensland Health Department employment conditions. They provided insights as to giving people choice. And as far as I'm concerned, if you work for government, if you work in the medical industry, if you were an essential worker, whatever it is, everybody should be entitled to the same rights. And I really don't think that this, infection, whatever, discriminates between a place or discriminates between a person, so it's hard when you talk about discrimination under the human rights laws. Unfortunately, there isn't anything about medical rights. That's one thing that I think that we should change.
Sorry, I just read the comment because a big over your face thing. In the US, the Cleveland study showed that this past season's flu vax caused minus 27% efficacy, meaning those who took it were more likely to get the flu. I wonder if our quadrivalent variant ones here are different to theirs. Yes, my daughter has to get the flu jab working in aged care and hates it, doesn't want it, but has no other skills of training. So, same old story. If they change it to mRNA, I wonder if they'll still mandate it. Well, they haven't they already changed it to that?
Yeah, my understanding is that they've. Well, I think you can still have a choice, but my understanding is there's a choice between the COVID and the flu jab, or just the flu jab by itself. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, but I wonder whether they've already put the mRNA in the, or what it's called, in the flu jab. I mean, see, what's just come out in the last week, 2 weeks, whatever it's been, what's just come out that everything they talked about in Victoria, anyway, sorry, your New South Wales was probably correct. No, that's a joke. In Victoria, he made them up. It wasn't even health advice. So aren't people starting to think, so they made that up? What else have they made up? You know?
Yeah. Well, that's where in a lot of the big four publications and any other academic article, public trust is probably under 30%.
And this
You know,
whole thing still, I mean, the people are people are programmed to think that a vaccine is something that is effective to keep you healthy. Doesn't even make sense. The two things don't go together. You know, we can keep ourselves healthy by keeping ourselves healthy, by being fit, by exercise, food, nutrition, all the right things. You know, I don't like to touch woody things, but I don't get sick.
yeah. Well, that was the same with me. With me and Lennox, we for 10 years we didn't go to a doctor. We
Mm,
didn't have any pharmaceuticals in the house, no painkillers, nothing. There was a couple of times that he had a minor break at rugby or something like that we'd go to hospital for, but outside
yeah,
of that, you really can strengthen your body and give it all the
yes,
nutrients that it needs for it to, for it to work quite well, or well enough. But that's not taking away from choice. The big thing here for me is
mm,
that everybody should always have choice. That's a universal right for people to have choice. You can't take away choice. You can't mandate away from choice.
absolutely. And that's why, I mean, a lot of us did the stupid curfew thing in Victoria, but we should be. Hopefully, there's going to be some consequences for all of that. Has to be, but people should be absolutely furious about all of that stuff. How dare you tell us we can't walk out of our house 5 past 8? It's just insane. Um,
All of those things were insane. Up here in Queensland, you've probably heard it, but we were really quite lucky for the month of March. For example, Lennox's school, which is a private school, that was closed down for 1 month, and it was
mm,
online learning. But that private school has probably about 50% parents that work in the medical industry as well.
right.
Um, so, it's really interesting to see what happened between public schools and private schools. Um,
Mm,
and at a private school, well, there's a lot of essential workers and high middle class, income workers who are like, we don't worry about anything else. We just do what we need to do, and our children will go back to school, and everything will be fine.
mm,
They
mm,
didn't really need to wear masks at school or anything like that. So it was really quite interesting that principal was um, a great business leader. She was really good in the school, and
mm,
I during even after the court case, I had many meetings with her. Because Lennox's father and his wife would sort of bully me with the teachers and different things like that, and I'd sit down and have a discussion with the principal to stop it. And she was just an amazing woman. She actually
mm.
died too. She's only 50 something and died in 2022, which is so sad.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but she
Yeah.
didn't keep the school locked down. She put in the measures in place to make sure that everybody was fine.
Mm,
Um, and there were nothing like what happened in Victoria. And then really, I think in 2021, we only was shut down for 3 days.
mm.
So we had
Oh,
nothing
no,
like
ours was
Victoria.
huge. Absolutely. And on Thursday, I'm talking to a woman who, and I want to talk about the effect of that on young people, especially, because Um, for some of us, we were just like, okay, well, we accepted some of it and just got on with different things.
Mm,
But I suppose I was lucky because I could do that in a way. Cafe Lockdown started and all of that, and other things we were doing, creative things which we just did at home. Um, for I know there's a lot of people who are by themselves, and imagine just the insanity, going slightly insane, always being by yourself. The only time you actually see other people were maybe going to the shop or something, or the 1 hour walk you're allowed to have with someone,
yeah.
and all those insane rules, that they set up. You can have this many people over to your house, but you can't have that many people, and you can have the only people with green hair and black teeth. It's just like ridiculous,
Yeah.
almost.
But I think it might have been John that just flashed up on the screen then. To
Go on.
have to be parents and homeschool
Yeah.
for that period of time. That was another impact on lives.
Yeah, yeah. I had older kids, but my daughter was at school still, but um, I actually think, if it had been different, my son perhaps would have done something different as well, because he kind of exited quite fast, um, the whole thing, and they were just like, okay, come on, get on with it now,
Yeah.
get on with your life, and don't, that didn't really happen, did it? But this it's still happening. There's still the effect of it all, but that's
Well, I think
that's a
I
whole
think
other thing.
for a fair majority, those who were essential workers, they never missed out on income or life as it was prior to COVID. You know,
That's right.
so they
Only affected people.
they've still got their cash flow, they've still got their assets, they've still got their savings, and a range of different things like that. There was, so it wasn't even if it was people that objected to having the COVID vaccine, it was also a whole range of different people that were deemed unessential
Mm,
for a period of time, and that didn't work out for people if they weren't in full-time or part-time employment for a
yeah.
period of a year. you know Social benefits didn't come to them, and even if they did, the social benefit payments weren't necessarily going to compensate for the current salary
No.
point of difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
even though they were saying there's good measures, there's just I just feel that there's a lot of trauma because there's so many different variables, and it's going to take a while. And I think that and even the traumas obviously of the ignored vaccine injury. Those that know that it's from a vaccine injury, and a lot that don't know.
mm.
It's highly
I think I
likely.
might have already said that. Look, that's absolutely right, and I don't know if I think I might have said this on here. I remember going to one of the Forest of the Fallens. It was one that Amber organised, and was walking along the South Bank here. And this woman was with her mother, and she's just kind of looking and looking. And can't remember. I asked her something, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh my God, I didn't realize there were more people who were injured. She had just been at home with her mother for the last 2 years or something, just thinking it was her. She was the only one, or whatever. Probably not the only one, but she didn't really know what to do. And so you can imagine how many other people have just sort of got on, not even maybe connecting that it was that it was connected.
Yeah.
Um, just going to put this on Martin's The Essence of Freedom, Free Thoughts, Opinions and Speech. Yeah, well, that's right. We're not alone, though. We're not alone. You stand alone in your opinions and your
Mm.
thoughts, but we're not alone.
Yeah.
That's what
And I
we have
think
to remember.
there's always the upside to a lot of things. So, you know, advancements in technology, whilst there's,
Mm,
various risks that might come with that, it's connected so many more people. It's
yeah.
that we can have now a much more meaningful dialogue and try and find different different ways to maintain a lot of the good things about society and about humanity, and bring forward all the good things into the
It just
future.
brought it all up. Yeah. Now, I was just going to say, just going to go back to what Marie said there about people were paid huge amounts of money. Now, I do think, I remember the government was handing out, if you were self-employed or if you were, you had a business, you couldn't do, and it was like, oh, wow, the government's being nice, I remember to some people. But of course, that was just to make them look good, you know. Um, to make them think it's okay. We're keeping you home, but we're looking after you. It's just all for your good, and it's all manipulation and brain. What do you call it? Control, mind control. Imagine. I wonder how much money was actually put out at that point, all through lies.
It was crazy. I heard from a workplace health and safety guy up on Group Island, and BHP spent something like $40 million
Just
putting
in
in
one
COVID
island.
and various things like that, just to
Oh
fly
my
in and out
God.
workers on Group Island. Like if you think that that's just one place, you imagine not only the government but all of these other organizations that
Yeah.
spent that money, and then had tax write-offs and a range of different
Hmm.
things.
And
They're
all the other things,
all,
like I don't know if they did it up there. They must have done it up there because they did it here. They put all those perspex things in so that you couldn't, but you could put your head around that side, but you couldn't.
and all your
And
products could be touched and
all the
breathed on.
dots, all your products could be touched, yes, but you could
None of
stand
that
on the
made
dot.
sense
I
anywhere.
know, I know. But now they've got the money thing, so we don't have to touch money. And I said to someone recently, and I'm not having a go at them, but I'm saying, okay, so what's this? I always pretend I don't know what this is. I said, what do you mean? What's this about? Why do I have to put my cash into this thing? But you've just touched all my things. So,
I
huh?
know, it was crazy. Absolutely crazy. So some of the biggest learning things that I got out of that was there still always is choice.
Hmm.
Right. So the federal government's risk assessment had choice, the Queensland Health Department employee, whatever it's called, protocol or whatever, gave people choice. APRA gave their primary health practitioners choice.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, so they came down to, and this was only working with these different people that I found these documents, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it really wasn't affecting me and I wouldn't have looked for them. But an example is the federal government COVID risk assessment. Having the vaccine was an administrative control right from the
Mhm.
outset, which is what ScoMo was actually saying. Everybody will have choice. We've done a risk assessment; it's always going to be an administrative control. So when you do workplace health and safety risk assessments, you have a hierarchy of controls.
Mm.
So administration is right down the bottom before you get to the last resort of having to use PPE, which is called masks, gloves,
Yeah,
hats, and
yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
So it's the second last control method. And even with the school, I educated them on the symbols up here in Queensland. So, developing symbols, that it looks like wash your hands and sneeze into your arm and all these
Cough.
crazy things, right? Um, and the vaccine bottle was not the very first instruction across the symbols. So when
Mm.
people look at these symbols, they don't really have to know what's in the document. The symbols actually tell them what the first, second, third, fourth, fifth step is, right? And with
Right.
that kind of education, then you take that, if somebody wants to condemn you or something, you say, but this is what the Queensland government put out. The vaccines weren't the first line of defence,
Mm.
right? So the policymakers that put these policies in place, they knew what was happening. They know that the vaccine is not the very first line of defence. So there's all this different messaging that's going on. But
Yeah.
the examples is, Queensland Health Employment Directive I think it's point number 10 or something, gave uh, objections for religious objection.
Mm-hmm.
There was one other, and it may have been medical or something like that, right?
Mm.
And then, which was quite interesting because they tried to wipe out all religious exemptions everywhere, but apparently it was still okay for the hierarchy in Queensland Health. There was another one which was so you know that the well talked about APRA statement that gagged doctors, um,
Yes.
and it came out on the 9th of September 2021, and at the bottom of page 2, it actually talks about all the primary health practitioners having a conscientious objection to having the vaccine or giving the vaccine.
The primary, so they were allowed to have one, or they let.
Well, no,
Um,
so the way that they put it was if
mm,
you choose to have a conscientious objection to having or giving the vaccine, that is
mm,
your choice. You must present that to the business owner or your supervisor or whatever, but you also
mm,
must consider other other mandates that may be appropriate or applicable.
mm.
But to a degree, what that meant was if you were your own business owner in the medical industry and you didn't have anybody else working there, well, you didn't have to report anything to anybody. You just didn't have it for the conscientious objection.
Wow. Wow. I
So
wonder how many people knew that. I mean, so, and are you saying, did you say before that APRA, if you worked for APRA, they would allow them to have that as well?
well, it was the APRA statement for all of the
That
different
was the statement for the things, yeah.
for
So,
all of the registered allied health practitioners, right? Of which there's 10
mm,
different bodies in Australia. So the letter was quite threatening. The very first paragraph was quite threatening. It also did say that you are not to talk. There's already rules in place that you're not supposed to publicly speak out
again,
against
yeah,
public health
yeah,
measures, right?
yeah.
That's kind of, and I know that that can be a separate debate and different things that have
Mm,
happened in that area. But I'm just saying what the letters and what the contracts between the
mm,
10 different bodies say with APRA, for example. And it's interesting, the Chiropractors Association, and because I helped a chiropractor in Victoria, the Chiropractors Association agreement with APRA says we are actually, on the very first page, says we are not in the position to enter into this agreement on behalf of our members with APRA, right?
mm.
So it's quite interesting who will stand up to their rights and freedoms as far as organisations and associations and different things like
Yeah,
that. But then this letter did say that you should not not coerce, but you should not try to
try to,
discourage your patients from having it. And
yeah,
if and if they do choose to have it, then you recommend them to another provider, etc. Right? But my whole
mm,
point is that the for some of us, the ideal of conscientious objection is still out there, and we need to bring it back to the forefront.
yes. That's what I had to use, like, years ago with my kids at school. I had to just fill out a form. That's it.
Yeah.
I object. Yeah, and there was never a problem. But, that's right. It just goes back to the whole thing is don't trust everything. Do not actually learn for yourself. Think, and we're talking to the converted here anyway. Um, but to get this out into the world, that people need to start really looking for themselves more. You know,
Mm.
some of these things now, and so it's really sad. People putting comments over here about was it Diane? Michelle? Her mum is pretty much dead, but still living because of the side effects of the crap she's taking. She sadly she hangs on every word and stroke of a pen. So she's obviously got her marbles. She's got her brain. I mean, so I found this quite bizarre, but they're going to do palliative with my dad, and this is all they have to do is take him off his medication, apparently, which is like Seriously? Wow. I wouldn't have known that, you know. No, he's not even on a huge amount of medication, but you know, that's like I said, if he doesn't pass before then, because he's ready, he really is. He said it yesterday. This is kind of a bit over there as well, but you know, just going back to what we were talking about, the ridiculousness of everything. So my mum died in 2022, and I had to go into the nursing home, which my dad was just put in there at that point because you know he couldn't live by himself, and I had to go and I had to wear all those ridiculous PPE things just to tell him that that his wife had died of 60 something years, you know. Things like that, so inhumane. And I know that's nothing compared to what some people have been through. You know, with people actually couldn't get into the nursing homes and all that stuff, and seeing their parents through the glass, those awful videos and things we saw early on, where you know a lot of these people with dementia have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. So sad. I have to admit, in 2022, 2021, 2022, when they rolled out the vaccine and there was such a big uptake, I'd say it was then that I had lots of tears and lots of sadness for knowing what was to come.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Jane. Jane. Yeah, you're one of those people that sort of knew.
Well, it was by accident that I found this document from the chemical toxicology database in from North Carolina University. And it's a database that just would blow anybody's mind. It must be like a 10-year education process to learn how to use this database. But I found it's the mRNA polymerase chain 2 reaction scenario, and it has a list of 189 diseases from, you know, this new speed of science way of delivery, which is the polymerase chain 2 reaction, and anything else a medical doctor has to say. 189 different diseases based on a gene interference network, which is like a gene code, just like there's the MTHFR, which I knew about, gene code. There's these other gene codes, and in that list of 189 diseases, there's about 11 different types of groups. And if you've got that coding in your gene information network, that means that you are highly susceptible to getting one of those 180 diseases. And, you know, an example is the speed cancer, or it's the dementia, or the Alzheimer's, or the schizophrenia, or, you know, potential different, you know, organ deterioration. And
yeah, there's been a lot of Guillain-Barré,
all of that. So I found this list, and I've tried to get traction off anybody, and I can't get anybody looking at it. So I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But you know, it's there's quite a few things I say to people. I say, get a gene test. You know, there's places in Melbourne where you can go, and this is what I did with the chiropractor. I said, you know, that's a new skill that you should bring into your practice. Go and get a gene test, because if you've got one of those 11 sets of genes, then at least you know what you might be predisposed to, and you can start preventing the inevitable. You know, and so and you never know exactly what's going to happen, but you know, there's people like Dr. Peter McCullough, you know, and other people that are brilliant people that can potentially work out different solutions, and whether they're 100% what somebody needs, that doesn't matter either. We don't have 100% perfection in every part of our thoughts and our mind and our body. That it's not about that. It's about,
if it's just a preventative, and you're actually going to be looking to take something which, in case, it can't be harmful.
Well, it could give you another 20 years in life. You know, just knowing this information could give you that extra 20 years in life, rather than you're gone in the more often than not 3-year time frame. So so there's different things like that from saying yes to working with these people and trying to find out more information, that I've stumbled across some of those things.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
so yeah, it makes me sad, but I do believe, that there's a range of different opportunities out there. I'm the kind of
Mm.
person now that, for a really long time, I've never wanted to support the pharmaceutical industry. I don't need to be their customer. I want to be a customer in the natural health industry. And I want to pursue that path. So
Mm.
we have choice. To me, if we don't look for solutions and we don't pursue a different path, like you and I've, sort of recapped on a fair amount of the issues and things like that, which is always a good thing to do, and it's a bit of a competitor analysis
Mm.
scenario as well,
Mm.
as to the benefits or risks of products and
Mm.
services that they provide. But the idea is to not want to be like your competitor, and move over into another area that's going to provide more of the solutions that a lot of us are wanting, to protect our choices, to
Yeah.
protect maybe things that are already happening with our body,
Yeah.
and so to stop the bullying,
Well,
to stop that bullying. And one thing I can't handle is the denigration that goes with all of the names that they'll call people that don't want to, that want to exercise conscientious objection. And
oh, it's
so,
ridiculous. Yes.
this for me, coming from a workplace health and safety point of view,
Mm.
bullying and harassment is, you don't do it, right? You've got to
Yeah,
put in
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's not good to, you can't do it in that workplace, but you can do it anywhere else. I mean, seriously, the trolls and the harassment and things that have been going on in the
in
last
the
week or so.
No, all of that. It's crazy how, but workplace health and safety is as good as the people that stand up and give a give a stop notice or whatever it might
Mm.
be, an enforcement notice, or they get sued for when something bad happens. And I remember looking at some of the things that were happening in Victoria, and there was at one stage a few people that were trying to pursue Dan Andrews and a few issues through workplace health and safety, and he just came in and replaced somebody and swept it under the carpet, all that sort of stuff. And that's happened many times, but still that won't stop me from focusing on that. And even some of these high profile authorities that like to denigrate people that are exercising their conscientious objection, they don't realize that it's part of the medical community that are able to do that, that it's part of the
Mm.
government that are able to do that. So it's denigrating and intimidating a lot of people that they don't realize that the actual audience, and they're
Yeah.
just continuing a brand of bullying and
What I
harassment. And
want
that's the
to,
biggest thing that happened over the last 5 years.
yeah, and what I want to continue on with on Thursday, because Eva specifically works with young people now, is they have a real oh well, so finished, so gone now. What are you on? Why are you still going? But you don't realize the damage, and not only the financial and all, as in everything's going up purposely, I know, but the financial damage, but there's psychological, mental health damage. There's got to be. They kind
Spiritual.
of just experienced all of that, and it's okay, Yeah,
There's a lot of spiritual damage,
yeah.
a huge amount of
Yeah.
spiritual damage. That's one of the reasons that conscientious objection exists as well.
So
You know,
being able to actually, that's right. So not even being able to go with their own gut and their own instinct and their own
it's a high conscience,
vision.
scenario from love, joy, observation, and intuition. That's a conscious choice. That's a conscious objection.
Mm,
That
yeah,
that I don't want modern pharmaceuticals in my life. I don't need them. Don't
as much
force
as
them on me.
possible. I mean, of
Yeah,
course, but what
but other
happens
people
with,
may need them. Other people may want them. It may help other people. But
yeah,
the idea is you never take away people's choices.
Well, absolutely. There we go. So it's not like we, how the way we've been thinking, have been going around anti all the. Look at the hospital system. Look, I didn't realise you were in Queensland. I always thought Sunshine Coast was New South Wales. Sorry. The hospital that Michael's been in, up there, the hospitals. He's had incredible treatment and everything. I didn't see anyone being badly treated, and there were when I was just up there, all I saw was good, and I know that he's had nothing but good and care. So there is a reason sometimes, of course there is, but the best thing is to try and prevent it ever happening and be proactive with yourself. Um, that will help the hospital systems anyway, because you know.
I do think that the hospital systems have changed. Not sorry, not necessarily the policies, not the policies and systems.
Mm,
Maybe they still exist, but they're not as heavily enforced,
right.
especially on the patient population. And that would have been from feedback from different scenarios that have happened, and eventually not being as tough with all of the measures that they were back in 2021, 2022. So,
Yeah.
but I think it has to be kept very quiet, and then again, like I think it was John and somebody else came up and said, working in aged care, I still need the flu jab. There'll be different organizations, and I think they're going to be more likely to be private than in government, that are going to stick with their policies and
Yeah.
systems.
It could be the families as well. It could be the families of the elderly people going, I hope all your staff have a jab, blah, blah, blah. Could be some sort of,
Well,
because,
that too.
so trust and choices, definitely, Jan. That is it, 100%.
Absolutely.
What was I going to say?
So, it's and they're out there. So, but
Oh,
with what I'm
I know
wanting
what I
to
was
do
going to
to
say. Yes.
pursue, natural therapies, there's a whole, we've just talked about the COVID
Right.
thing, but there's a myriad of different scenarios that are playing out in that area, and I still see that it
Do you know,
is now
Dr.
being
Darrell Wolf? Do you know Dr. Darrell Wolf? I've
David,
talked about him a few times on here.
David
Now,
Wolf.
I don't know. I would imagine it would be very expensive. Everything he does seems to cost a lot, but he's been talking about, and I believe there's one or two already in America, of purely natural hospitals.
Yeah.
That's where they do all the So that was where you'd be going, I would imagine, in your brain. That's would be the goal for Australia as well.
Yeah. So, and there's a really good article about Ghana doing that. Ghana's one of the first places as well. And, to be able to get all the different modalities that fall under traditional, natural complementary medicines is a really good starting place, and for me, in Ghana, they are integrating it into the existing current health system. But, for me, Ghana isn't, from my knowledge, isn't like a Western medicine, Anglo-Saxon culture
Yeah,
society.
yeah,
I think here, for example, and for that reason, there is a lot of bias. So, there's a 4-page document that I was provided. Again, I was provided this link. I didn't know it existed, but it's actually a 4-page spreadsheet document of all of the doctors that they're Western medicine doctors, which they call conventional. I find that a weird word, but anyway. And they are the ones that actually report to the World Health Organization. So it's not the World Health Organization reporting to us and controlling us. It's the 4 pages of the doctors here in Australia that are feeding through information to the World Health Organization saying, this is what we want for the people of Australia, rather than we've asked the people of Australia what they want.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
this is what industry and government are going to do for the people of Australia, and they feed that through to the World Health Organization. Whereas Ghana, for example, is a different kettle of fish. So for them to
Yeah.
integrate, this into the public health system, I think is probably more achievable there than it would be here. And that's where, but even in America, in different states, they would be similar to Ghana, and especially now with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and what he's doing, there'll be quite a few changes there.
Mm.
But that, I don't think that that's going to translate here to Australia anytime soon, because a lot of the authorities and different government bureaucrats just think Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are batshit crazy, so they're
Yeah.
going to try and prevent any of that coming into Australia.
Mm.
But I do think there are other ways that we can do it from the ground up with the people.
From
We
the
can
ground up. Basically
start.
have to think for yourself. That's right. Actually
Well, we
do it
all have to
yourself.
come together. What it
Yeah.
means is instead of all these not-for-profits and civil society organisations being developed, from the top down, it's actually developing it from the bottom up. And that people power has to come together to say, we demand that this is what we want. We're all coming together. We're all going to work out a plan, and we're going to make it happen. For me, the I guess, and I guess I'm quite hopeful, to be able to go through that challenge of keeping a school open for that term was a crazy period of time. It really was an against all odds scenario, but it happened. And there was the situation with the chiropractor in Victoria that I helped with her getting back in after her exemption from naturally having COVID finished on the 30th of April. We went through it. It's a lot of paperwork and documentation and learning, but once you get that right, you can exercise your choice. So she had a doctor's letter saying she can go back into her practice and she's operating in a safe environment. And the other thing that happened with her was that she had a horrid family court case that was happening with her two boys. And she ran into the family law court in January 2022. And the court, again, like my court scenario, said that if you don't want to vaccinate your boys, you're a risk to your boys. And she then lost her medical parental shared parental responsibilities. They were moved over to the father, and the boys were booked in for a pediatrician appointment on the 5th of May, the first one after their exemption from having it naturally went. And by the 5th of May, without going back to court, I worked with the mother and the two boys, and she didn't have them the whole time with her, and we made sure that those two boys weren't vaccinated. So there's different ways to do things, and it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of documentation. But that's on that side, right? If we can, if we can provide a different option, surely we don't have to worry about all of those kind of scenarios.
So I was just going to ask you,
natural health option, that's what we focus on.
Yeah, so kind of to bring it together here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got all this stuff, and you talk about working from the ground up and all of that. What if you could just create what you wanted to, what would you envisage the system look like, the medical system that people have the choice to go to, of course, in Australia? What would you say that looked like?
Yeah, so it's my imagination that has my imagination is already there for your answer. And there's a lot of things that I've been working on and studying through my undergraduate degrees. So where I can with an assessment, I'll throw in some ideas, and it's like having a business coach, and these ideas and different things that are happening are academically assessed, right? So to me, that's a bit of a tick, in the credibility area for different scenarios rolling out. So, I do think that we should be able to start moving choice into the area of, across all of business and society and governance. Since 2016, I've been following the tiny house and more sustainable living movement. They found it very hard for traction because of all of the legislation that's put in place at each level of government, to be able to get back to more simple, sustainable, natural ways of living, which are really well
Mm.
informed by Indigenous knowledges, is a really um, challenging environment, but I believe that we can do it. And that's where I did mention to you, if we can't get what we need here, we need, and wherever you are, we need to start looking further afield with what's going on, or looking into trends and things like that that we can adopt here. So one of the ideas, and I've had this company called Wellbeing Reinvented since 2016, and I've
Mm.
had all of these ideas, but there's been a hell of a lot of learning since then. But I've
Mm.
always kept the business going, and I've always used myself as the research for the business, and other people that I might come across and whatnot. Basically just information,
Yeah.
being the research. So more recently, I've developed the Purple Heart Project, because the idea is that any of our thinking, we actually want to come from a higher conscious. We want it to be love and joy. We want it to be, you know, good observations from that point of view. And we want to be able to engage in our intuition. A lot of that's been taken away from us. So the Purple Heart Project sort of signifies, being in that area. And with that Purple Heart Project, there's multiple facets of that. But what I thought was developing, number one, a display village like you have in, the normal built residential environments. It's a
Mm.
display village, but it kicks off also being a research centre for traditional
Mhm.
complementary integrated medicine.
Mm.
And that way we can start to get around a few, or through some of the development legislative loops. We can engage more people. We can obviously start bolstering a lot of the science that is needed to really support people's choice in
Mm.
traditional complementary integrated medicines. That obviously falls into food, to farming, to all sorts of different self-sustainability options. But if we developed a display village that had a natural health facility as the center point,
Mm.
that to me puts everybody in that display village in a different space. They've got access to all these different modalities that you normally wouldn't have. And especially starting off being a research centre, it's a display village to show people what can actually happen, instead of people getting together and developing a community off grid. It's got a bit more structure. It's showing
Yeah.
people what can happen. We can have, different tiny living places that are actually offices that represent different Indigenous knowledges. And it could be a kahuna massage, could be Chinese therapy, it could be, our native Indigenous peoples here knowledge, all these different modalities that people can actually use. And then if that model is then taken out to different communities, that starts to develop the base of new residential areas. And there's a growing trend for it. There has been for quite some time around the world. Even
Yeah.
here, there's still a range of different people that are all involved in one way or the other. So
Mm.
I believe, and that's why I feel, sure, you could try. I've already said why I don't think it's the best option to integrate into our hospitals, and especially I don't think that it's a good idea. There's another example of what's happening at the moment about this, but I don't think it's a good idea to have, the APRA and the TGA kind of people, and
Oh.
that list of 4 people that write to the World Health Organization, who are biased towards their investments in the vaccine industry. I
Yeah.
don't think they should be involved in any regulation or decision making over here.
Yes.
I think
We
it
should be
needs,
allowed to actually have it. Yeah.
and that's
Um.
one thing that I mentioned to you.
Mm.
So with this just being one scenario, I
Mm.
thought, how do you get that together? And it's a social enterprise, bringing all the community strength together from the ground up. So there's a petition, and it's not done like any of the other petitions. It's a creative petition. It's got color, it's got life, And it's about everybody coming together and saying, I demand a change. And one of the key things that I think that I mentioned to you is that why do we not have a minister for natural health here in Australia?
Yeah.
So in India, since 2023 and the Gujarat Agreement, they now have a minister of Ayush. I can't. I'm very good at Australian, but I can't, say that
Oh, I don't.
with tongue.
But Minister for
Ayush.
Natural Health. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is a minister for natural health in India. So there's a
Mm.
research in 2023. They set up the International Research Centre in India, and that's why I'm saying if we had an arm of that research centre here in Australia, then we
Mm.
could get a lot more traction. And unfortunately, I know it's going to go against a lot of people's beliefs, but things change, things happen, more information comes to hand, and maybe sometimes, just maybe, you got to take a little bit of bad with the good. But this has all been promoted by the World Health Organization, and if we exit it, we don't have anywhere else to get this from. The World Health Organization provides two choices. Sure, one is the IHR, which is funded by the top three WHO funders, which
Mm.
is which has
Yes.
been the USA, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Germany,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So wherever, it's that follow the money thing. Wherever that
Mm.
money is, they're going to try and bully and control what happens in that organization.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's happening. But the World Health Organization had put out a strategic plan for traditional complementary integrated medicine. And here
Right.
in Australia, if we don't ask our government and our authorities for it, you're not going to
Mm.
get it. We've
Right.
got to at
So this
least
is
try.
just all you're talking is in information and being informed. So I think this is fantastic the way you talk, and I just think, okay, so how do we connect all these people? How do you
So,
connect up? Because
yeah,
on here, I'll just say on Earthworm Woman, there's been lots of people who are very, very cluey in what they're doing, like so from growing herbs, Heike, we
yeah,
had Bronwyn Home, who knows all about the soil. So there's
absolutely.
so many people knowledgeable like you know.
Absolutely. So the idea, so for what I thought was, all we need to do is start off with a petition. Doesn't cost anybody any money, and they can get involved with online social activities, and they can also send their petition entry to my PO box here on the Sunshine Coast. So
I'll put a
the idea
picture here if you
is
want, for
that,
sure. Yeah,
see this, see this big book. It's a book that you use in a marketing agency, right? And it's called a guard book.
that's a
So
big
in
book.
this book, I have my first my first petitioner was my brother,
Hmm.
who I absolutely adore, my older brother. And this is what the petition looks like. Can you see that? Can you see the writing?
We can't read it. I can't read it, but maybe
And you can
afterwards.
see it. So
Hmm.
the idea is to do things seriously differently. That's what you do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if we were to do another online petition through the government portal, technical issues happen, it's only available for 4 weeks, and the whole thing falls flat on its face.
Hmm.
To do a hard copy petition, that's a really hard thing. And that was one of the reasons why I was going to do woofing, so I can travel around Australia and actually get people's signatures into the one place, right?
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah.
people sending signatures, it still could be done that way. But for me, putting it into a guard book to guard our rights for affordable access to traditional natural options, I wanted to put it into a guard book. So, and then doing a different approach is getting this guard book, and whoever wants to come with me, I don't even need to go, but I'd love to. But whoever wants to come with me, go
Hmm.
to the next World Health Organization Traditional Complementary Integrated Strategy meeting and present them a petition on behalf of the people of Australia and New Zealand. And then once that exposure has happened internationally, our government has to go, okay, well, we better do something about this.
Hmm.
That is one
Right.
option. They may not do anything, but we've got international exposure now, and that can start
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
traction around the world as well. And then we bring that petition back. And from what I've read, we can still find a politician in Parliament who will actually still present this petition into Parliament. So it's a different way of going around it. So we
I
don't have
understand what you're saying. Yeah. If you get the petition, I'll definitely put it onto here, and we'll spread it far, and get that going for sure. Because I think
and anybody can do it. So at university at the moment, I'm doing my social media courses, and I've only ever been a keyboard warrior and reposting and maybe putting in my 2 bobs worth and comments and things like that. But I've never wanted to antagonize anybody online. I always go with that principle, and it's actually a tort law principle, which I think one of the key things is to simplify things for everybody. And so it's a tort law principle for damages, and it comes from a Scottish legal scholar called Lord Aitken, and it's consumer law as well, legalese, in that 2 things is 2 premises for providing products and services is, number 1, love thy neighbour, and number 2, first do no harm. So where we don't have the Nuremberg trial and the Hippocratic Oath and all those sorts of things working at the moment, and they may again one day, but we go to a different area of law. So we've got love thy neighbour, first do no harm. We incorporate that into everything that we do online. We just need to love everybody. We don't want any more division. We don't want any more mental traumas. We want everybody to be the best friends that they can possibly work out how to be. That way we come together with a lot more strength. The second thing is that, if we speak ill of anybody and we take away their choices, and this is, a real observation that we make about ourselves and about other people, we don't want our choices taken away, so we don't take those choices away from other people. And if other people are going to be bullying and, harassing and intimidating, the idea is you turn the other cheek as best that you can. But if it's really causing harm, then a lot of people have got to come together and say, stop, that is enough. We've got to learn how to protect people as well. So it's a very hard area, but in the workplace and companies that really engage in workplace health and safety legislation actually have really good outcomes. So they're just a few different principles. Right. But with this workplace, with this strategy that I'm putting in place, I'm kicking it off from my Facebook page, which has got like 60 followers, and it's called Wellbeing Reinvented. I've set up a whole.
Let me put that up. Wellbeing Reinvented. That's your Facebook page.
Yeah. So at the moment, I've got until the end of May to do my different these current social media courses, and that will have a social media strategic plan in there, with the goals of what I've been talking about, and anybody can get involved. This isn't my IP. This isn't my idea. And I've mentioned a lot of these different elements to people before, because I'm like, can somebody do it? Can we all do it? So anybody can run petitions and gather information, send it to me in the mail. If they're not online with digital, you always provide 2 options for people. They can get involved with the digital online activities that are happening. And that way we start developing this social enterprise. Wellbeing Reinvented is just a business name under a trust that I've got. And at some stage, we'll develop a board of governance that will carry that name and take this whole social enterprise into developing some of those different projects. So this first project is called the Purple Heart Project Petition. And then we'll have different Purple Heart Project activities.
I think it's fantastic. Purple Hearts. I love it.
I think it's worth a try.
What's that?
I think it's worth a try. We need to.
Absolutely. They are talking about. I think you'll find there's a lot of people, as we know, as we talked about, a lot of people who would love to see something like this. I'm conscious that it's almost 1.5 hours, and I don't know, but I set it up for 1.5 hours on the thing, and I'm terrified it's just going to cut off at the thing. I don't know if it does or it doesn't. So I really, really appreciate your everything, Sandy. You're amazing. It's so much positive information, and that's what we have to do, like you said.
We've got to, and that's, when you think like that, that's what provides resilience.
Yeah.
It's okay. Well, it's, my dad always gave me a quote, and it's a Rudyard Kipling quote. Everything turns out all right in the end. If it's not yet right, then it's not yet the end. And the idea is that you keep trying your best to keep doing right things until you get to the end. Just a simple
Amazing.
way of
Fantastic.
thinking.
Love it.
Okay, so we
Everything
may
turns
cover
out right in the end. If it's not the end, if it's not hasn't turned out right, it's not the end. Yeah. Love it.
yeah. So and that more often than not will give you a positive space to exist in. So
I really
for any,
appreciate everything.
even
Thank
with
you.
even with the flu vaccine, if you go to my Facebook page and just send me a PM or something like that, I'll give you some of the tips, to help you manage that process in that area as well.
Yeah,
natural
fantastic.
by the way.
Wellbeing Reinvented is her Facebook page. Wellbeing Reinvented. Again, anyone who might be interested in this channel, Earthworm Woman, I just need 1,000 likes. I think I've almost got 500. If I get 1,000, then I can stream on the page. That's all. I'm not like big-headed about likes. It's just I want to stream on the page. Thanks so much, and thank you everybody again for everything, for supporting, for commenting, for being a part of this brilliant community. And let's keep strong and keep going forward. And I'll end with the end. So thanks so much, Sandy. Okay.
Thank you.
But wait, can you hear our children crying? They're calling from all over this land. They're glaring at today's page.